So I'm going to try a little visual illustration here today. I got to confess to you, I'm not a very artistic person, but I did learn something in elementary school art about primary colors. That if you mix together two very different primary colors, like red and blue, you can come up with a completely new third color. So what happens when you mix together red and blue? Purple, you get purple, exactly. Now I was thinking about these colors, and red is a really great color. Red is the color of the Chiefs. Red is the color of my favorite team, the St. Louis Cardinals. Unfortunately, they did not make it to the playoffs this year. Red, Taylor Swift, one of my favorite artists, she has an entire album called the Red Album. Red is a really beautiful color. What are some things that you love that are red? Apples, it's apple picking time of year. What else? What's red? Sunsets? Yes. I couldn't hear all of those, but lots of things that we love are red. And in the same way, blue on its own, it's a very nice color. It is the color of the Kansas City Royals, who are in the playoffs this year. Hopefully they play better against the Yankees the next time that they play. Blue is the color of the sky, of the ocean, of water. Blueberries, exactly. What are some of your other favorite things that are blue? Ice, did you say eyes? Blue eyes, yeah. But then, if you take each of these colors, which are both beautiful on their own and in their own rights, and you mix them together, you come up with purple. Purple is often considered to be the color of royalty. Purple is the color of lilacs and lavender, grapes. But you wouldn't get to this nice, pretty purple unless you started with red and blue first. By taking two completely different things, you come up with this brand new third thing of purple. Now, of course, we are in a political season, and red and blue, they represent something else. They represent the colors of our two major political parties. So you have red for Republicans and blue for Democrats. But I wonder, what would happen if we came together across the aisle? If we set aside our differences and we tried to create something entirely new, something purple. Now, over the next few weeks, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. In fact, over 1,500 churches across the United States, most of them are United Methodist, but not all of them, are going to be having these same conversations over the next 5 weeks as we talk about things like kindness and compassion, humility, respect, and love, even during a really politicized season of our lives. Now, a lot of people might think that I'm pretty crazy to get political from the pulpit, especially since things are so contentious. But over the next 5 weeks, I'm not going to try to tell you that one side is better than the other. I'm not going to convince you that the other side is wrong. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to push a specific political agenda. But instead, we're going to focus on those things that we can all agree on, things that we all believe in, whether we are Republicans, Democrats, somewhere in the middle, completely apolitical and want nothing to do with politics at all. These things that should guide our identity. Because after all, our identity is in Christ first, not in our preferred political party or candidate. So as followers of Christ, what are those things that we can all agree on? Those things we can all stack our hands on? Where can we find our purple space? Well, of course, one of those things, I hope for most of us, is the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat others the same way you want to be treated, showing kindness and respect, seeking to do good and not harm. Now, one of the things that I love about the United Methodist Church as a denomination is that we consider ourselves to be a big tent. In other words, we believe that here in our church, we don't have to agree on everything. We can have political differences and theological disagreements as long as we keep the main things the main things. This big tent of Methodism goes all the way back to the beginning. When John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, he brought together people from every walk of life. People who were poor, people who were rich, uneducated, the educated, the socialized, the social elites, as well as those who were in the working class or in poverty. He modeled what it looked like to share life with people who were very different than yourself. And it was Wesley who famously said in one of his sermons, "Though we cannot think alike, may we not love alike. May we not be of one heart, though we are not of one opinion. Without all doubt we may. All the children of God may unite, notwithstanding these smaller differences." Wesley was also fond of another saying, and we don't exactly know if he came up with it or if he found it to somebody else, but he would often say, "In essentials, unity. In non-essentials, liberty or freedom, and in all things, charity." That's who we are as Methodists. But in fact, I'm going to go a step further and say that here in the church, we shouldn't just tolerate people we disagree with. We shouldn't just put up with people we disagree with, whether it's in a political disagreement or a theological disagreement. Instead, I think here in the church, we actually need each other. We need people around us who think differently than us. Without having both the red and the blue, you would never get to the purple. So take, for example, this kind of cultural divide between conservatives and progressives. Pastor Adam Hamilton, he frequently points out that there are really good and beneficial aspects to both of these positions, both of these ideologies. So conservatives, they're seeking to conserve or preserve the past. They want to make sure that as a country, we don't stray far from the values we were founded upon, things like freedom and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Now, from a theological perspective, I'm actually considered to be a conservative theologian. And that's because I believe in the traditional doctrines of Christianity. I believe that Jesus really did rise from the dead. I believe that Jesus really was fully God and fully human. I really believe that one day Jesus will return. But because I believe these things, that actually makes me pretty conservative on the theological spectrum. Because there's a lot of Christian thinkers and theologians that don't believe in things like the resurrection or the virgin birth or the second coming. Now, progressives, on the other hand, they are seeking to progress or move forward. And I think that that's valid too. There's a lot of times we need to move forward from an ugly past or an ugly history. For example, I'm really grateful of the progress of the Methodist Church when in 1956, they allowed for women to have full ordination. Before that, that wasn't the case. So that's an area where we have progressed, and I am grateful for that. And I actually think it's really important that we have these two different political parties. I think Republicans and Democrats, as well as independents, they provide checks and balances to each other. They prevent one side from becoming too radical or too extreme. And as we invite discourse or conversation from people who believe differently from us, it gets us outside of our echo chambers. It helps us from getting a confirmation bias, thinking that everyone believes the way that we do. And when we talk to people who think differently than us, it gives us new perspectives. So purple can be a really beautiful thing. We need each other. And I think that at the end of the day, most of us share the same core values, the same core beliefs, even if we have different opinions about how those values and beliefs should be lived out or enacted. Finding common ground, coming to that purple space, means that we should start with those values we can all agree upon. So at the risk of getting a little controversial, I want to use the example of gun violence in our country. I think all of us can agree it is a really big problem. I heard a statistic this week that guns are the leading cause of death for children ages 1 to 19. You saw this even in the vice presidential debate this week. Both Walz and Vance said this is a problem. Gun violence is an issue that we need to do a better job on. But of course, there are different ways that we might seek to address this problem of gun violence. So for some, reducing gun violence means restricting who can own a gun, or perhaps restricting what types of guns are sold so you're not selling automatic weapons or assault-style rifles. For others, decreasing gun violence means increasing mental health access. So making sure that you can intervene and provide mental health resources before it gets so bad that somebody would want to use a gun to hurt themselves or others. For others, decreasing gun violence means increasing law enforcement. So, making sure we have enough agents and detectives and school resource officers to detect and deter crime before it even begins. And of course, for others, decreasing gun violence involves implementing safe and smart, common sense gun laws and gun practices. Things like making sure you have a working gun safe or that you have been trained in proper etiquette for gun safety. Different approaches, but they all have the same core value of reducing gun violence. And of course, in reality, it's going to take a combination of all those efforts to tackle the problem of gun violence in our country. We can't just have one approach and neglect all the others. We need each other. And when one or two or more sides work together to address these challenges, then we can actually come together to create something new. Solutions that work for everybody to find our purple space, our common ground. So if we talk about core values and central beliefs, here in the United Methodist Church, one of our core values is summed up in our mission statement. Read it together with me. Make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. So this is something that I hope we can all agree on. We can all stack hands on. It's a good and beautiful thing to make disciples of Christ and to transform the world. And then here locally, in our local church, we also have a shared value, a core value of our mission statement. Let's read it together. Bring people to the living water, teach them to become disciples of Jesus Christ, and send them out to impact the world. So again, this is something that we can all stack our hands on. We can all get behind this. This is our shared value. It's our purple space. But I think that our common ground and our shared values, it goes beyond the fact that most of us would consider ourselves Methodist. It has to go deeper than the fact that we are all worshiping together in this local church. Because all people have a shared identity, because we were all created in the image of God. As our scripture passage from Luke 6:35 says, we are children of the Most High God. Did you know that 99% of our human DNA is the same from person to person? Only 1% of our DNA accounts for the differences in individual people: hair color, eye color, height, skin color, things like that. So as humans, we all are more alike than we are different. As some might say, we are kin to each other. We are all a part of the same human family. But this word kin, it actually shares a root word with another word: kindness. Kindness, or kinness, it refers to that shared feeling of mutuality that we have, or we're supposed to have, towards our family members and our relatives. So our kindness for one another, it should come from a deeper place, deeper than just the fact that we are all Methodists, deeper than the fact that we all share the same DNA, that we're all part of the same human family. In fact, our kindness should be drawn from the fact that God is kind and compassionate towards us. Again, Luke 6:36 says, be compassionate, or be kind, just as your Father is compassionate. We should be kind and loving towards others because that's how God acts towards us first. When we love our enemies, when we care for even people we disagree with, when we do good to others, when we give to others without expecting anything in return, then we are acting as children of the Most High God. Then we are modeling God's kindness even to wicked people and ungrateful people, as this passage says. When we are kind and compassionate and treat others the ways that we would like to be treated, then we are living out the compassion, the kindness and the mercy of our loving God. So as followers of Christ, our lives ought to mirror the kindness and compassion of God and not look like the divisiveness of the world around us. Our lives should point back to the kindness and goodness of God because it's in God's image that we were created. And when it comes to divisive politics and living in this polarized society, I really do think kindness is the key to it all. Kindness might just be what saves democracy. In September of 2022, so just about 2 years ago, a poll came out that found that 75% of Americans, and this was, people all across the political spectrum, 75% of Americans agreed with this statement. To restore peace and unity, we need leaders to model kindness and understanding, even with people they strongly disagree with. I think you can resonate with this. We are all sick of the nastiness in politics. We are sick of the name-calling. We are sick of the hateful rhetoric. We are all ready for our leaders and our politicians to begin practicing kindness and compassion, even towards people they disagree with. But if we keep waiting for our leaders to model kindness and understanding first, we might be waiting for a really long time. I wonder if compassion and kindness, it needs to start with us first. I follow a social media account called the Tiny Kindnesses Project. And as I read through these stories, they're stories that people have submitted when others were kind to them or they witnessed an incredible act of kindness in the world around them. And then there's all sorts of stories. You think of things like strangers paying for each other's gas or their coffee, helping someone with their yard work if they're injured, taking care of a sick coworker. My favorite stories are always the stories of parents, young parents who are traveling or flying, and the people next to them are incredibly kind to them. No one wants to sit next to a fussy baby on a long flight. But instead of complaining or saying, oh gosh, I got stuck with the baby, these strangers would say, here, let me watch your child so that you can run to the bathroom. Or I can entertain them so that you can get a quick nap. Just incredible acts of everyday kindness. And then every time I read these stories, it makes me feel really good. As I read these stories, it makes me want to extend kindness towards others. We've all heard of the saying, random acts of kindness. But what if kindness wasn't random? What if kindness wasn't just sporadic or occasional? What if kindness was our lifestyle? Most people will tell you that it takes at least 30 days to develop a habit. We are now almost exactly 30 days out from the presidential election on November 5th. What if over the next 30 days, from today, October 6th, until November 5th, we all did at least one small act of kindness every single day? What if we took seriously this passage to be kind and compassionate as our God, our Father in heaven, is compassionate? How might we point others back to the kindness and goodness of God? Now, often we may not know where to start when it comes to showing kindness to others, so I'm going to give you a head start. As you leave today, you will be handed a sheet of paper that has 30 ideas for acts of kindness. And of course, you can go beyond that paper. You might think of things that I hadn't even come up with. But how exciting would it be if all of us in this room today practice one act of kindness every single day? Maybe people in our communities of Excelsior Springs or Lawson or Richmond, maybe they would look around and say, there's something different about those Methodists. I think they've got something good. They seem like pretty decent people. I want to be a part of that too. I mean, how cool would that be? So show kindness. Treat others how you want to be treated. Find your purple space this week. And remember that we are all kin because we are all created in God's image. Now, I had planned this sermon a while ago without even realizing it was World Communion Sunday. But I think that even just goes further to represent how kind and compassionate our God is. Because as we approach the table in just a few moments, we remember that we aren't approaching this table alone as Christians or Methodists here in Excelsior Springs. We come together on this World Communion Sunday with Christians all around the world, people in big churches and small churches, people who speak various languages, people with different backgrounds, political ideas, and theological perspectives. And when we come to this table in just a few moments, we remember that Jesus also broke bread with people he didn't always agree with. Jesus broke bread with people whose experiences and traditions and beliefs were not only different, but sometimes even opposed to his own ideals. But yet his table was open to all. You might say it was a purple space.